so this has been somewhat of a disappointing year for cases, and I'm looking forward to 2018 because it's supposed to get better, right? So welcome to our worst case trends of 2017. There's been plenty. Let's discuss right after this. The new Master Liquid all-in-one coolers are available in 120 and 240mm stylish radiator sizes, with air balance fans included for best airflow and RGB sync on the pump and the fans that are controlled via this hub or through your motherboard. Check out the ML120L and 240L down below. So I'm making this video to be like a reference point to which we can look back and see if anything that we discuss here today with you and also in the comments gets addressed within the case industry. So let's go. Now these are not in particular order. So the first case sin would be the lack of Type-C integration on the front I/O of cases. Type-C on motherboards has been sort of the mainstream for like a whole year. So not only is it much easier to route because the cable is smaller, but of course USB 3.1 Gen 2 speeds are awesome and the case I/O should accommodate for it. Next, I really dislike included fans on like 90% of the cases because they're these cheap generic black fans. Cooler Master, for example, on their most premium enclosure has the same fans as on their budget stuff. We see fans with Molex connections or single color LED fans that ruin the whole color coordination. And also, where's my no fan option upon checkout? I really would love to see that become the standard across all price points in 2018. And speaking of price, why does it feel like cases are getting more and more expensive without the budget introductions to compensate for the rises in prices for the premium stuff? And the only exception I can think of this entire year is the Phanteks P300, which is a fantastic $59 enclosure that has pretty much all the same features that you'd normally find on cases twice the price. The next big trend is lack of interior variety. It seems like there's this one formula for a case interior and everyone is following it without risking to deviate from the pack to create something actually unique. For example, vertical PCI brackets for GPU installation, it's present on majority of cases now, but aside from Cooler Master and now EVGA, no one is offering the mounting accessories to be included with the case to actually utilize that slot for your graphics card. It's a slow catching trend that is not evolving with the frame, so the GPU is way too close to the side panel, so temperatures are actually worse, and you can check out our investigation with that right over here. Every case now has a power supply shroud, which is awesome. I love them, but everyone is doing the same thing, so the 30% of your enclosure is basically identical on majority of cases. So we have cutouts on the shroud for the front radiator, cutouts for the PCI cables, slot for SSDs, and some design graphic near the power supply area to indicate the brand. It's fine, I'm not complaining about the features, but nobody's doing anything different aside from a few brands, like Be Quiet with the Dark Base 700 with the modular plates on the power supply shroud, or the flexible mounting points for the SSD caddies on the H700i because of that perforation. But aside from that, and like a few maybe other examples, everything is basically just copy and paste. And we're also seeing so many identical interior frames across brands because there are multiple case suppliers, but not many case manufacturers, so it's very easy for a company to redesign the exterior a little bit but keep the inside, and we're seeing that happen so often. So the latest Entech P8 case has the same frame as the one-year-old Silverstone Redline 05 that has the same frame as the Raid Max Delta. The latest Bitfinex Enzo case has the same frame as this DIY PC brand that I've never heard of that resembles this Z9 Neo by Zalman that looks similar to the Cougar MX330 that is the same frame as the Enermax Grace Mesh. And it looks like only a handful of companies are trying to do something unique and different for the interior to keep the excitement going, but it seems like the interiors are getting bigger for the mainstream, which is wrong. Now, I understand the logic behind wanting to check off as many of the boxes and compatibility things as you want for the consumer, but cases today are just way too big for the average build of maybe 240mm all-in-one cooler, one single graphics card, or a nice beefy CPU tower. And so what happens most of the time is all this wasted space around the hardware, and not everyone's doing a custom water loop with dual GPU graphics cards, so why are cases getting bigger? I think we need to remove the perception that big bigger cases have better airflow or that they're somehow more premium, because that's just not true. Everything in 2017 in terms of color coordination has been a black frame, potentially with certain color coordinated accented pieces, but only for a few brands. But everything else is color customizable through RGB illumination, which has taken a life of its own. But why don't we see different materials aside from, steel, aluminum, plastic, and tempered glass? Why don't we see any wood on cases to just add a little bit of really cool aesthetic pieces on the exterior of the frame? Why don't we see any fabric covered front panels to just potentially tie it into your living room for HTPCs and stuff like that? And why don't we see any recycled materials coming back into the case industry so that you can feel a little bit better? I don't know about actually recycled materials integration inside the frame itself, but perhaps for packaging, that would be nice. Now, the biggest visual trend for 2017 in my eyes has been tempered glass. And what started is this fantastic way to eliminate that crappy, scratch-prone acrylic side panel with glass has turned it into a little bit of a disaster. So the initial price jumps for the TG model was a little bit too high, and then charging $50 for a TG panel upgrade is just ridiculous. I also think it was artificially inflating the quality of the case. Just because it's shiny, it doesn't mean that the frame itself is good. We saw this with Anidis, who were one of the first to actually release a case with 3 tempered glass side panels, but with a terrible metal frame and really poor quality. It was actually one of the reasons why we didn't accept the review sample, because the frame itself I could see was poor, and charging like $160 for 3 side panels, it was obvious that they were trying to take advantage of the market and the rising popularity in TG. So and now tempered glass has spread all over the case, and because you're limited on glass shape, and everyone ends up basically with the same design. Although I have to give EVGA some credit for trying something new, but having a solid white glass panel kind of defeats the whole purpose of the see-through and the reflective properties of glass. You know what I haven't seen yet though is tempered glass on the power supply shroud. That would be cool in certain segments to potentially reveal what's inside, but mirrors on the interior to potentially highlight certain things with lighting, that would be cool. However, the biggest fail of this year has to be the huge oversight in front airflow and how choking the fans has become this running phrase among case reviews. That's just sad. So this actually comes back to tempered glass, because either due to design decisions so users can see their RGB fans or whatever interior is, or due to silent properties where the fans have just no air to breathe because the paneling is just completely closed off. And we saw this with the H500P, a particular airflow focused case turned out to be not what anyone was expecting, especially because of those giant 200mm fans. The latest Lian Li case suffers from the same showcase priorities with tiny ventilation area on the front panel. The latest EVGA case actually totally blocks the front fans with only small gaps on one side, and when I did my tests we got 10 degrees cooler temperatures when the panel was removed. The latest Be Quiet Dark Base 700 has incredibly restrictive airflow entrance as well, because, for silence, I guess. And companies should not be afraid to open up that front panel, and, with a nice balance of fan RPM and unrestricted airflow, you can still have nice silent and quiet system with good cooling temperatures and nice front airflow. Also, can we please have a standard configuration for the top radiator mount? Something with guidelines so the case manufacturers know what to do, because majority of them are still centered, which kind of sucks. If you don't have enough height for the motherboard, the radiator simply will not fit or interfere with your motherboard. So anything that will be offset closer to the side panel would be appreciated. And many cases don't have sufficient room above the motherboard tray to accommodate a standard set of fans and radiator, and you don't need a super tall case for that. Potentially reduce the height of the power supply shroud and move the motherboard tray down a little bit to have appropriate room at the top for the most common cooling situation in 2017. The new Tesoro Gram SE Spectrum is one seriously beautiful keyboard with per key RGB illumination, macro customization built in, and comes with Tesoro's new removable optical switches that are dust and water resistant with linear reds or clicky blues. Full details on the SE Spectrum down below. And so I am eager to see what 2018 has in stock for case reconfiguration and reinvention, because 2017 was a little bit of a disappointment. And so that is all my thoughts about the worst case trends of 2017. Let me know if you agree and share your discontent about the case industry in the comments below. Let's have that chat. I'm looking forward to reading everything you say. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out this other relevant content and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next case video.